Welcome to the DSEF. The Direct Selling Executives Forum was created to be a place where real direct selling executives and vendors in the space can come out and share solutions to challenges that face us all in the marketplace. Our guest today is going to be unpacking a topic and sharing their raw thoughts for you to learn from. All right, let's go meet our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Direct Selling Executives Forum's panelist session. I am so excited to bring out our speaker today. If you're brand new to the DSEF is an invite-only community for direct selling executives from all over the world that meet together on LinkedIn and connect for these open forum discussions on real topics we all deal with on a daily basis. And we bring in experts to talk about different issues we all face. Now, today, we are unpacking frameworks for expanding into Canada, specifically speaking to European companies and American companies that want to expand into Canada. One of the greatest misconceptions is that Canada is just the 51st state of the United States, and you can make all kinds of bad decisions if you treat it that way. And so to prepare for today, we are blessed to have Mr. Michael Weinberger on the line with us today. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Michael before Omar starts the show and brings him out. Michael runs a law practice that focuses on helping businesses who seek to grow inside of Canada. In particular, he has expertise in advising direct selling companies and MLM companies. He's worked with startups, little companies, and huge billion-dollar organizations in the space. And he is committed to giving effective advice to business in both English, Spanish, French, and German. So is that all? Just four languages, Michael? That's the best you could do? Dude.
Only four.
It's incredible. He is the most interesting man in the world,
Absolutely.
and we're going to have a ton of fun today. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass the episode to our amazing host, Omar Qureshi. Omar, go ahead and kick us off, and let's get started.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for showing up today. We are so grateful to have you on the show. The first question I have for you from the panel is, many direct sales companies see Canada as an opportunity for expansion. Before someone decides to go into Canada, what questions do you believe they should ask their executive team?
So, great question. First off, Ben, thank you for the introduction. You're going to make me blush. It's very kind. So there are a few things that an executive team should ask when they're looking to go into Canada. So first of all, do they think that their product is going to be successful in Canada? If the product doesn't sell, there's no multi-level marketing system that will succeed. That's
True.
where it all stems from. The second question that you got to ask is, do you have a group that understands the Canadian market and understands the Canadian legislative framework? It's best to have people on your team who have some experience in coming into Canada, coming with the understanding that, as Ben mentioned, Canada is not the 51st state. The next thing to consider when coming into Canada is, do you have the technology to come to Canada? Does your software provider understand that if you have to make a slight change, a modification to your compensation plan, will they be able to implement that effectively and efficiently? And lastly, when coming into the Canadian market, you have to first ask, what is the Canadian market that you're going after? So, for example, I've had clients from Europe, from France, that say, hey, we want to enter into Quebec, which is run under not a whole separate set of legislation, but it's a real different beast than if you're trying to go into the English-speaking provinces such as Ontario, Alberta, or British Columbia. So those are some of the questions where I'd start off with.
Yeah, that's such a great place to start. And I love you asking the question, Omar. And it's so perfect. We had an episode just a few weeks back before this that the listeners could listen to from Tom Big Al Schreider, talking about the success pyramid of how a company wins in a marketplace. And he opens with, well, if the product's just amazing on its own, you don't even need marketing, sales, and all these other things. People just flies off the shelf. Like if you invent the next TikTok, people just watch it and love it and share it with others. And it's such a good point to just start at the basics. I like how Elon Musk and others talk about, this primary factors. So like principles that are so important. And just start with the question, is my product going to are Canadians going to want to consume my product as a retail customer? Is a great question. And sadly, some people miss that and totally skip past it. And this idea of having someone internal on your team who understands Canadian culture and can help navigate, hey, the differences between Quebec and Ontario, or if you're out in Vancouver, that's a big deal difference. I've seen that. I've actually had a client open Canada for an online education company and then send me an email a week later saying, hey, can you remove Quebec from the enrollment form? Like, we weren't ready for that. Like, hey, can you take that off? We're not, we didn't do our work right. And so you don't want to be like them. You want to do your work ahead so you can enter the market properly and answer those questions. Great start.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. For the second question I would have is, when expanding to Canada, what framework would you invite direct sales companies to follow to ensure success?
So first of all, as I mentioned in the past, question to ask is, number one, do you have product viability? Will your product sell in Canada? The next question you got to ask yourself is, what can I do to ensure some kind of legal certainty that I'm operating a legitimate legal multi-level marketing plan and not an illegal pyramid scheme? Yeah. This question is fundamental because what may be legal in the United States may not be legal in Canada. And what may be legal in Canada may not be legal in the United States. And so when you start, because multi-level marketing has a lot of can have a lot of legal uncertainty in it, it's really important to really pin down those issues. The other framework that I would suggest that kind of goes hand in hand with this is to start with a crawl, walk, run method into entering the Canadian market. So it's a lot better to piece by piece expand from one province to the next province than it is to rapidly expand into all your provinces very quickly and deplete your resources. So what does that look like? Typically, it looks like, first of all, doing some product testing and questioning of your field to see if there is a demand for your product in Canada. Number two, some companies try selling their products in Canada without having distributors on the ground in Canada. Three, when you do decide to enter the Canadian market, to start off by obtaining what's called a written opinion by the Competition Bureau. So what is a written opinion? A written opinion, and what is the Competition Bureau? A written opinion is what I call the golden ticket. It is not necessarily a license, but it is some form of approval that the Competition Bureau will give to your company to say, yes, your company is not a pyramid scheme. Yes, your company is a legitimate multi-level marketing plan based on the policies and procedures that they reviewed, based on the compensation plan that they reviewed, your advertising, etc. When you start off from there, you start off from a place of legal compliance. You start off a place with certainty that you're not going to get an email from the Competition Bureau saying that you're a pyramid scheme. So what's the Competition Bureau? The Competition Bureau is what I kind of call the American FTC. They're the organ of the Canadian government that regulates multi-level marketing plans and pyramid schemes. So once you have that pat down, and once you get a written opinion, you've kind of graduated from crawl, and now you're ready to walk. And once you're ready to walk, you have automatic entry, we'll call it, into the provinces of Ontario and British Columbia. And Ontario and British Columbia are the two most populous English-speaking provinces in Canada. So right then and there, off the bat, you're getting a big chunk of English-speaking Canada. Now, how do you ratchet it up? How do you go from walk and you're getting ready to run? You know, your product is selling, you're getting new participants in your opportunity, and you say, okay, we're ready to expand. Number one, see where your products are selling. See where you're shipping your products. If you have lots of products shipping into Alberta, for example, you're going to tell yourself, okay, let's see what we need to do to get to an Alberta, which happens to be, you're going to need some more provincial licensing. You're going to need to get bonded. You're going to need to get a proper license with the province of Alberta. And so you, piece by piece, province by province, you can expand. Now, what does run look? Run looks, you have all the English-speaking provinces that you want to be in, and then you want to go into Quebec. Quebec is typically the most onerous province to enter, chiefly because you have to translate all of your policies and procedures, your terms and conditions, your privacy policy, your compensation plan. And it's very costly. It's as an upfront fee, and it's costly as a maintenance. So if you're sending out a Canada-wide blast to your independent distributors, you're also going to want to have that written in both English and in French.
Exactly.
So that's just something, that would be the framework I'd look at. So start off with crawl, go to walk, and then go to run.
You know, one thing that's really interesting about what you just shared with those thoughts, Michael, and I hear about this time and time again, and I love it. Thank you for the education on the Competition Bureau, the written opinion, just that framework, super helpful to the people here. And I'm just curious. There was a question on the panel on NFR, and I see people start NFR all the time. So I'm curious about your opinion there. Oh, Omar, let's go to that panel question. If you want to go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what Michael.
I've got the same question next in line.
Yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes,
Go
Michael. A lot of direct selling businesses, use the not for resale model when first entering to Canada market. What is the NFR, and what are your thoughts on NFR?
So, excellent question. NFR is a bit of a misunderstood beast. NFR, strictly speaking, is not for resale, which means you can import as a Canadian consumer, you can import a limited amount of product that would otherwise need a license, such as a natural health product license, and you can get that for yourself, and then you cannot go on to resell it onto another third country, such as China or Taiwan. What most people are thinking about when they talk about NFR, it's actually the personal use only exemption. So the personal use only exemption is if you're buying a natural health product or a cosmetic that doesn't have the right registration, you can purchase a limited amount for yourself, and only you can use that. The tricky bit with NFR, or personal use only, is that if you're a multi-level marketing company and you're entering into Canada, you're selling your product to people that, number one, like your product and want to share your product. And you're naturally selling them to distributors.
Yeah.
And what do distributors do best? They go to resell things.
Yeah.
And so you can find yourself in a tricky situation where, as the company, you have to walk a very tight line to make sure that you fall in line with the not for resale rules. And beyond that, companies also have to recognize that some products are just banned outright in Canada, and they cannot be sold NFR. So, for example, if you're selling CBD products in the United States through direct selling, that cannot be sold full stop into Canada. You cannot cross the border. So NFR, to kind of wrap that up again, is a very tight rule, it's a very thin line that you got to follow, and it may not be right for all products. And you gotta sit down with your lawyer, figure out what solution might work for you, and if NFR or personal use only is actually a good choice for your business.
You know, what's really interesting is we unpack NFR. We run into clients all the time who are digital products, Michael, versus physical products. And they think, hey, we're online, we're just, selling our education or our subscription to a piece of software. What would you say to those people in opening Canada? Do they still need to go through all these rules and get a written opinion in the Competition Bureau, or are they just fair to run free, and these are just people consuming their own personal use of digital products in that world? What would you say to those customers? One
of the myths of NFR is that NFR means that MLM laws do not apply to me.
Right.
It's even if you are selling something with the NFR model, it is possible that the MLM laws are still applying to your company. So if you're running any form of compensation plan, if you're paying out compensation to people that are distributors in Canada, it's very, very likely that those MLM laws apply to you. So if you're selling even a digital product, you really got to take a hard look at what your operations look like in Canada and determine whether or not you're triggering the multi-level marketing laws in Canada. One thing I would add is the Competition Bureau so the American FTC, that gives you this golden ticket, this written opinion. They typically prefer a ask for permission rather than ask for forgiveness model.
Yeah.
They
How
have stated
anti-American
that
of them. That's the
yeah,
opposite
that's right.
of most Americans. That's such a good point, Michael. I don't mean to interrupt, but that's like the opposite of culture here for so many. So,
yes,
that's such a
and
good
so
note. Go ahead. Yeah.
you really got to be careful, because it's possible that the Competition Bureau will refrain from giving you a written opinion if you're already operating in Canada. So it's not impossible, but they far prefer that you go to mom and dad first, you have them check your homework, you have them check your policies and procedures, and they give you the green light first.
That's so good. That's so good.
What a great insight. Wonderful. Right, Michael, I've got a last question for you from the panel, and that is, what challenges and pitfalls have you seen direct selling companies run into when expanding into Canada?
Oh, the stories.
So very good question. Canada is not the 51st state. And this is one of the places where direct selling companies challenges, but also opportunities. One of the great things about direct selling is that you have people on the ground who were born there, grown up there, understand the culture, understand how to talk the talk and walk the walk in that specific region. So forget about just selling in, say, the city of, say, Toronto, but say you're in a rural town in Wyerton, Ontario, you know the local customs. And so you can use your fields to effectively have advertising that's very, very unique. But the drawback is that you can't just treat it as the 51st state. One of the big issues I find for multi-level marketing companies coming into Canada is their product licensing. So if they're selling natural health products, if they're selling less so cosmetics, but if they're selling natural health products, there is a registration process that takes a lot of time and can be quite costly. By a lot of time, I mean potentially 210 days to get your product up and running, translated, ready to go, ready for the Canadian market. The other thing that multi-level marketing companies sometimes have difficulty with is making sure that their logistics are all set up. So it's one thing to ship a product from New York State to Michigan. It's another thing to ship a product from Michigan to Ontario, even though they're closer. So there's customs, there's duties, and there's taxes that have to be kept in mind. The next thing to consider is direct sales companies have to understand that when you expand into an international market, sometimes you need to change your compensation plan, if just by one word. And as I'm sure Ben appreciates very acutely, one word can make a big difference in a compensation plan.
Certainly can.
And when you do that, you got to make sure that you have a software provider, a back office provider that's there, who understands how to expand into an international market, and that they have that experience. And lastly, one other thing to consider is when expanding into Canada, most companies don't have this as a really big challenge, but you also have to work with your payment provider. So if you're having your product sold in American dollars, Canadian consumers, they want to see how much they're paying in Canadian dollars. So you can work with your back office, you can work with, the pay quickers of the world to make sure that your compensation is being paid out in, lo and behold, Canadian dollars. So I've seen some companies struggle just in the beginning to make that correct conversion and not be dinged by too many fees. You sell something in American dollars, you then have a conversion from Canadian dollars that you were paid in. And these little fees, they chip away at your margin, and they lessen the Canadian consumer experience.
That's such a good point, Michael, because and even you as the company, if you're paying extra FX on the money in, and then you're converting it back to Canadian on the way out for commissions, you're paying FX on both ends of the deal. And I know I've definitely worked with clients to solve that challenge before. That's something we've had to do. And with your volume, it's just literally just free money once you fix it as a challenge, because you're just
Yes.
you receive money in Canadian dollars and you pay it out in Canadian dollars and you settle up after, and like you only want to have to pay an FX exchange once to your core entity. You don't want to have to pay it 2 or even 3 times, depending on how you're managing your funds in your world. Each of those are just taxes on your ability to do business at the end of the day. That's a solid
one of the things I would kind of use to temper people's fears is that Canadians are used to, they don't like it, but they're used to paying a little bit more for their products than what they otherwise would pay in the United States. So when we go to the bookstore, it'll have the price in American dollars, it'll have the price in Canadian dollars. And even after you've done the exchange, for whatever reason, as Canadians, we're paying 10, 15, 20% more. And it's annoying, but it exists. And not that you still got to worry about competitive forces and making sure that you're having a competitively priced product. But I've seen some clients, they've upped the price of their Canadian products just by a little bit to help kind of cover some of those fees that we talked about.
Wow, what a great insight.
Well, Michael, I gotta thank you so much for being out here today. There's just a couple really great keys here. So again, as we recap, you don't treat Canada like the 51st state. And you gotta go ahead and you gotta go to school on this. If you're gonna open up another country, as we've shared in some of our other international expansion seminars, again, you can't just turn it on. You gotta go figure out, how do I do this long term? So once again, you're hearing long-term thinking is going to beat out short-term thinking. Okay, in our world, you hear that time and time again from experts that come on this panel. It's like, are you building this business for decades in each market, or are you just trying to get in and grab a buck? And you don't know, you're just going to sell your company. The long gamers always win. There's people who do this stuff properly, who make through it and build something amazing in the long haul. Michael, I want to thank you so much for being out here today. It was a total treat to have you here. If people want to meet you or find you, what website would you like them to go to?
So you can, if you type in siskins.com, SISKINDS.com, and type in my name, Michael Weinberger. We also have a multi-level marketing landing page where you can check out some of our blogs, some of our videos about multi-level marketing. As a final note that I would add to people who are interested in coming to Canada is, as much as Canada is not the 51st state, it is very close to the American demographic. It is very close in proximity to the American market. Direct sales is very well known in Canada. It has a very mature consumer base that understands direct selling, and it can be a really good stepping stone for companies looking to expand from the United States internationally. For the most part, the language is the same, and you have 40 million consumers who are likely going to be interested in your product. It's very friendly, and if you come to Canada, I would be happy to show you around.
Awesome.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for speaking on the panel today. And thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode from the Direct Selling Executives Forum. If you haven't yet joined the forum, you can go to directSellingExecutiveForum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum. For those of you that are watching on the stream, we are also available on YouTube and on Spotify, Apple Music, all of your favorite places you listen to podcasts. So definitely subscribe for more episodes as well. Michael, it's a total treat to have you on today. Omar, thank you for hosting. Everybody go ahead and have an amazing
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate you.
Thank you too.
Soon. Bye for now. If you haven't yet joined the DSEF group on LinkedIn, go to directsellingexecutiveforum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to apply. The group is free and is an invite-only community of direct selling executives by direct selling executives.